The vast expanse of space seemed still and peaceful as the starship Orion drifted through the void. But inside the vessel, an elite team of galactic mercenaries prepared for their next mission with grim determination. Jax, the battle-hardened leader of the Mercs, gathered his crew in the briefing room. His second-in-command Riz, the hulking weapons specialist Gorn, nimble infiltrator Vel, and tech expert Zoe all took their seats, eager to hear about their newest contract. "Listen up," Jax began gruffly. "We've been hired by the Zorgan Empire to take out a human research outpost on the planet Kepler, 186F. Apparently the humans there have made some new discovery the Zorgans want to get their tentacles on. Should be an easy job: get in, eliminate any resistance, secure the objective, and get out. Nothing we haven't handled before." The Mercs nodded, having faced many species across the galaxy in their violent careers. Humans were relatively new to the galactic stage. Surely this job would be quick and simple. As the Orion approached Kepler, 186F, Zoe began scanning for the outpost. She frowned at her displays. "That's odd. I'm not detecting any defenses or fortifications around the research base. In fact, I'm barely detecting the outpost at all. Their power signature is minimal." Jax peered over her shoulder at the scans, stroking his chin. They're not even trying to hide. Cocky bastards. They'll regret underestimating us." The ship touched down in a clearing a few kilometers from the outpost. The Mercs checked their weapons and gear one last time before marching out onto the lush, forested surface of Kepler, 186F. As they approached the base through the dense alien jungle, Vel scouted ahead. She suddenly raised a fist, signaling the squad to halt. Peering through the foliage, her eyes widened. "I count 4 humans, near the outpost entrance. They're armed and look like they're waiting for us," she whispered over comms. "Seem to be wearing some kind of advanced combat armor too." Riz grumbled. "Only 4 of them? I didn't fly halfway across the damn galaxy for a tiny scrap like this." Jax chuckled darkly. "Stay focused. We'll overwhelm them with firepower. On my mark, Gorn and I will lay down suppressing fire. Riz, Vel, you flank and pick them off from the sides. Zoe, jam their comms. Move out." The Mercs split up and advanced. At Jax's signal, they opened fire with their plasma rifles and targeted the human soldiers. To their shock, the humans reacted with incredible speed. In the blink of an eye, they took cover and returned fire with weaponry the Mercs had never seen before. Superheated projectiles cut through the air with lethal precision. Riz cursed in pain as one of the rounds pierced his shoulder, searing through his armor. Zoe's equipment sparked and failed as the humans counterhacked her systems with terrifying ease. More human soldiers seemed to materialize out of thin air, springing from cleverly camouflaged foxholes all around the outpost. They moved to surround the mercenaries with fluid, coordinated tactics. Within minutes, the elite Mercs found themselves pinned down, outmaneuvered, and fighting for their lives against an unexpectedly formidable human resistance. Jax barked orders to fall back, but the humans pressed the attack, giving no quarter. As plasma bolts and high-caliber rounds crisscrossed the battlefield, a grim realization settled over Jax. They had gravely underestimated humanity's prowess and cunning. These were no ordinary soldiers. They had to be human special forces. The mercenaries were learning a hard lesson, soaked in their own blood amid flashes of weapons fire and cries of the wounded and dying. A terrible certainty crystallized in Jax's mind, even as he struggled to rally his battered crew. When it came to facing human special forces, even the most grizzled galactic mercenaries had ample reason to feel dread. The jungle air burned in Jax's lungs as he sprinted for cover behind the twisted roots of a massive tree. Plasma bolts sizzled overhead, vaporizing leaves and sending plumes of dirt fountaining into the air. "Regroup on me," he yelled over the chaos of the firefight. "Gorn, lay down covering fire. The big mercenary grunted an acknowledgement, spraying the jungle with suppressing shots from his heavy plasma repeater. Vel and Riz scrambled over to huddle near Jax, nursing their wounds. Zoe stumbled over last, frantically trying to reboot her shorted-out electronics. Jax evaluated the situation grimly. In just a few minutes of combat, this small force of human special operators had reduced his team of hardened galactic mercs to a tattered, desperate mess. He had never seen any species fight with such skill, coordination and lethality. Who were these humans? A voice suddenly crackled over the mercenaries' comms, calm and cold amid the mayhem. Attention intruders. This is Captain Max Vance of the Terran Defense Force. You are outmatched and surrounded. Surrender immediately or face annihilation. Riz spat a glob of blood-tinged saliva. Smug primitive. When I get my hands on him. Can it? Jax barked. Zoe, options? The tech expert shook her head, her face a mask of frustration. They've completely locked down our systems, boss. Comms, sensors, navigation, it's all being jammed or hacked. I've never seen cyber warfare suites this sophisticated. And our ship is a smoking wreck. We're not going anywhere. Jax's mind raced. They were trapped on an alien world, light years from support, at the mercy of these deadly humans. He had always prided himself on planning for every contingency, but nothing could have prepared him for this. He keyed his comm. This is Jax of the mercenary ship Orion. I propose a ceasefire to negotiate terms. Neither of us wants a massacre. There was a tense pause. Then Captain Vance answered, we have no interest in negotiating with criminals here to steal our secrets and murder our people. But I'm not a monster. Throw out your weapons, come out with your hands up, and I promise you'll get a fair trial under Terran law. Jax gritted his teeth. Surrender? To humans? It was unthinkable. But what choice did they have? Gorn growled, boss, you can't seriously be considering this. I'd rather go down fighting than rot in some primitive cage. Vel nodded in grim agreement. Zoe looked uncertain. Riz just groaned in pain, clutching his mangled shoulder. Before Jax could respond, a series of deafening explosions shook the jungle. The humans had launched some kind of rocket artillery strike. Incoming! Jax screamed. The mercs dived for cover as the world dissolved into a hellstorm of fire, smoke and flying shrapnel. When the barrage lifted, an eerie silence descended. Jax's ears rang and his vision swam. He took stock of his crew. They were all miraculously alive, but badly shaken. Gorn hauled Jax to his feet. So much for surrender, the weapons specialist spat bitterly. But then Jax saw them. Striding out of the smoke and haze, a dozen human commandos advanced in perfect formation, rifles at the ready. Their expressions were grim, pitiless. They had the mercs dead to rights. Captain Vance's voice boomed from the lead soldier's armor speakers. I will not ask again. Surrender or die. Jax looked to his team. Zoe, Vel, Gorn, Riz. They had been through hell together, scraped through 100 deadly scrapes across the galaxy. But they had never faced anything like this. The mercenary leader slowly raised his hands in submission, letting his plasma rifle clatter to the ground. One by one, his crew followed suit. As the human commandos moved in to secure the prisoners, Jax couldn't shake a sense of soul-crushing dread. They had gravely underestimated the humans, and paid a steep price. But Jax knew that this was just the beginning. The galaxy would soon learn to fear the might of Earth's special forces. And the Orion mercs? Their story was far from over. This capture would send them plunging into a conspiracy beyond reckoning, with the fate of worlds hanging in the balance. The adventure was just beginning. The human commandos efficiently stripped the mercenaries of their armor and restrained them with high-tech shackles. Captain Vance oversaw the process, his cold blue eyes appraising each prisoner in turn. Jax bristled under the human scrutiny but bit back his defiance. There would be a time and place for resistance, but this wasn't it. The mercs were marched at gunpoint through the jungle to a waiting dropship. As they boarded, Jax caught a glimpse of the research outpost they had come to raid. It was a smoking ruin, torn apart by the ferocity of the battle. Whatever secrets it had held were now lost. The dropship ferried them up to a waiting Terran warship in orbit. The sleek vessel dwarfed the wrecked Orion, its hull bristling with advanced weaponry. Jax's heart sank further. The humans weren't just skilled warriors, they were a technologically formidable species. On board, the mercenaries were subjected to a humiliating processing. Bioscans, DNA samples, and intense interrogations at the hands of human intelligence officers. Through it all, Jax and his crew remained tight-lipped, falling back on their training to resist divulging any information. Finally, they were thrown into a cramped, stark cell in the bowels of the ship. As the force field sizzled to life, sealing them in, Jax slumped against the wall, his mind racing. Riz broke the tense silence. "This is bad, boss. Really bad. What do we do?" Jax forced a confident smirk he didn't feel. "We survive. We watch. We wait for our moment. No prison can hold us forever." Gorn snorted. "Easy to say. These humans are like nothing we've ever faced. Did you see the tech on this ship? We're out of our league." Vel spoke up, her voice tight with tension. What were they even researching on that outpost? What could be so valuable to risk a fight like that? Zoe shook her head. "I don't know. But I caught a glimpse of some of their data during the battle. It looked like advanced genetic engineering. Something called Project Odysseus." Jax's brow furrowed. Genetic engineering? That was banned tech in most of the civilized galaxy. What were the humans playing at? His musings were interrupted by the sound of boots marching down the corridor. 2 armed guards appeared at the cell entrance and deactivated the force field. "On your feet, scum," one barked. "You've got a visitor." The guards parted to reveal a human in an immaculate black uniform, his face lean and angular, his eyes glinting with cunning intelligence. He radiated an aura of ruthless authority. "Greetings, Jax and crew of the Orion," the man said smoothly. "I am Director Hannibal Creed of Terran Special Intelligence. I have an offer for you." Jax crossed his arms, instantly wary. "Not interested. We don't cut deals with jailers." Creed chuckled. "Oh, but you might want to hear this one. Your skills are impressive. You penetrated our security perimeter and nearly jeopardized a critical project. I could use talent like that." Gorn snarled. "You expect us to betray our own and work for humans? Fat chance." Creed's smile never wavered. "The alternative is spending the rest of your lives in a Terran supermax prison. Or facing execution for your numerous crimes. I'm offering you a chance to win back your freedom. A shot at a fresh start." Vel spoke cautiously. "What's the job?" Creed leaned forward. "We have a situation developing. A rogue human scientist has stolen sensitive data and vanished. We believe he aims to sell the information to our enemies. Your mission would be to track him down and recover the data, using your unique skills and underworld contacts." Riz laughed harshly. "So we do your dirty work, and you cut us loose? Forgive me if I don't take you at your word, human." Creed shrugged. "You don't have to. But consider this, succeeding in this mission might just earn you the gratitude of the Terran government. That's a powerful currency in this galaxy." Jax weighed the offer. It stank of manipulation and hidden agendas. But what choice did they have? "We're in," he said finally. "On one condition. We do this our way, no interference. Creed smiled coldly and extended his hand. Welcome aboard, Orion team. As Jax shook the offered hand, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had just made a deal with the devil. But the die was cast. The Orion crew found themselves whisked away to a secret Terran intelligence facility, where they were briefed on their mission. The rogue scientist, Dr. Elias Solaris, had apparently stolen plans for a groundbreaking genetic enhancement serum, the cornerstone of the clandestine Project Odysseus. In the wrong hands, this serum could upend the balance of power in the galaxy, Director Creed explained gravely. Solaris must be stopped, and the data recovered, at any cost. Jax and his team pored over the scant intel, trying to piece together Solaris' motives and possible whereabouts. Zoe managed to uncover a deleted message fragment that pointed to the lawless trading hub of Deadman's Gulch, a rough-and-tumble space station on the fringes of civilized space. Figures, Riz grumbled. Nothing but pirates, hustlers, and bottom feeders out there. Jax nodded. Sounds like our kind of place. If Solaris is looking to offload hot merchandise, Deadman's Gulch is where he'll do it. The mercs were outfitted with state-of-the-art human weapons and gear, a small taste of the rewards they could expect if they succeeded. Soon, they were rocketing towards the distant space station aboard a stealthy Terran shuttle. As they approached Deadman's Gulch, Jax gathered his crew. Listen up. We play this smart and careful. This isn't a smash-and-grab job. We need to blend in, work the crowd, see if anyone's heard anything about Solaris or his deal. The team split up to work their contacts and scour the grimy bars, gambling dens, and black markets of the station. It was a tense dance, pressing for information while avoiding the suspicious glares of the local thugs and crime lords. Finally, Vel struck gold. She cornered a jittery black market geneticist who had heard whispers of a big score going down, a human bioscientist peddling bleeding-edge enhancement tech to the highest bidder. It's all happening in the old refinery complex, out in the industrial sector, the contact babbled. But you didn't hear it from me. The mercs regrouped and geared up, stealthily making their way through the station's guts towards the derelict refinery. As they drew closer, they heard the unmistakable sounds of a firefight up ahead. Charging in with weapons drawn, they stumbled into a scene of chaos. Dr. Solaris was there, all right, but he was pinned down, exchanging desperate shots with a squad of hulking, heavily armed brutes. The attackers bore the distinctive insignia of the Zorgan Empire. Damn it, the Zorgans found him first. Jax cursed. The mercs dove into the fray, catching the Zorgans in a withering crossfire. In the confusion, Solaris broke from cover, clutching a data storage unit, and sprinted for the exit. Vel raced after him, nimbly vaulting over debris and fallen combatants. Jax and the others fought tooth and nail against the Zorgan troopers, their human-made weapons evening the odds. Gorn laughed with savage glee as he mowed down the enemy with chattering auto-rifle fire. Just as they put down the last Zorgan, Vel's voice crackled over the comm, "I've got Solaris." Heading for the upper landing pad. The mercs disengaged and pounded after her. They burst onto the landing pad to find Vel grappling hand-to-hand with Solaris at the edge of a dizzying drop. The data unit lay at their feet, forgotten in the desperate melee. Just as Jax drew a bead on Solaris, the scientist lashed out with a vicious kick, sending Vel tumbling over the edge with a cry. In the same instant, he snatched up the data unit and leapt into a waiting shuttle, which lifted off in a wash of jet wash. No! Jax screamed, torn between the escaping shuttle and his fallen comrade. But Gorn was already moving, diving over the side in a reckless bid to save Vel. Jax and Riz could only watch, hearts in their throats, as the shuttle dwindled to a speck in the void. The mission had gone sideways in the worst way. They had lost Solaris, lost the data, and maybe lost two of their own. Jax and Riz rushed to the edge of the landing pad, dreading what they might see. Far below, clinging to a jutting maintenance catwalk, were Gorn and Vel. They were alive, but just barely. The two mercs hauled their battered comrades back to safety. Vel was shaken and bruised, her armor scraped and dented from the fall. Gorn had fared worse, his leg twisted at an unnatural angle, his face gray with pain. "I'm sorry, boss," Vel whispered. "I had him. I had the data. And I let it slip away." Jax shook his head. "You did all you could. We underestimated Solaris. It won't happen again." They limped back to their shuttle, spirits low. They had failed their mission. Solaris had escaped with the genetic data, and now the Zorgans were involved. The situation had become infinitely more complex and dangerous. Back at the Terran intelligence facility, Director Creed was less than pleased. "You had one job," he growled. "Recover the data. Instead, you've tipped our hand and let Solaris give us the slip. The Zorgans' involvement is a nightmare scenario." Jax bristled. "We put our lives on the line out there. Gorn and Vel nearly died. A little gratitude wouldn't hurt." Creed waved a hand dismissively. "You're mercenaries. This is what you signed up for. And you haven't fulfilled your end of our bargain." Zoe spoke up. "With all due respect, Director, this mission was based on bad intel from the start. No one said anything about the Zorgans. If we're going to have a shot at fixing this, we need the full picture." Creed glared, but finally relented. "Fine. The Zorgans have been after Project Odysseus from the beginning. We thought we were ahead of them, but clearly, we underestimated their network. If they get their hands on that serum data, it would be catastrophic," Jax finished. "For everyone." He took a deep breath. "So, what's our next move?" Creed brought up a star map. "Our sources place Solaris in the Corax system. He's gone to ground, but he can't hide forever. Not if he wants to make that sale." Riz cracked his knuckles. "So we go in hard and fast. Grab Solaris and the data before the Zorgans can close the deal." But Jax was already shaking his head. "No. That's what they'll be expecting. We need to play this smarter. Get ahead of them for once." He turned to Zoe. "That data you glimpsed back on Kepler 186f. The genetic sequences. How much do you remember?" Zoe thought for a moment. "Not all of it. But enough to maybe reverse engineer some key components. Given time and the right equipment." A slow smile spread across Jax's face. "I have an idea. It's a gamble, but it might just work." The plan was audacious. While Terran operatives quietly scouted the Corax system, Zoe would work to reconstruct a version of the enhancement serum. Not a complete replica, but enough to use as bait. They would leak word of an alternate buyer for the serum data, one promising an even higher price than the Zorgans. With luck, it would draw out Solaris and the Zorgans both. Gorn, still recovering from his injuries, would pose as the buyer, with Jax and the others as his crew and hired muscle. When Solaris and the Zorgans made their play, the Orion mercs would be waiting. It was a dangerous ploy, filled with uncertainties. But it was the best bad option they had. As they made their preparations, Jax pulled his crew aside. "I won't lie to you. This is probably the riskiest job we've ever pulled. But we're the only ones who can make it work. The only ones who can stop this nightmare before it engulfs the whole damn galaxy." Riz, Vel, Gorn, and Zoe all nodded, faces set with grim determination. They were battered and bruised, but unbroken. "One last thing," Jax said. "No matter what happens out there, it's been an honor flying with you all." With that, they boarded their shuttle and set out, hurtling towards a confrontation that would decide not just their own fates, but the fate of worlds. The trap was set on a remote, barely inhabited world in the Corax system. Gorn, still limping from his injuries but putting on a brave face, played the role of the mysterious buyer to the hilt. Swathed in expensive robes and shadowed by Jax and Riz as his bodyguards, he cut an imposing figure as he strode into the designated meeting place, an abandoned mining complex. Zoe and Vel were positioned out of sight, monitoring the situation and ready to provide backup at a moment's notice. Zoe clutched the case containing the mock-up serum data, the key to their whole plan. They didn't have to wait long. Dr. Solaris emerged from the shadows, flanked by a contingent of nervous-looking mercenaries. The rogue scientist looked haggard and jumpy, the strain of his flight from the Terrans clearly taking its toll. "You have the payment?" Solaris asked, his voice tight. Gorn nodded to Jax, who held up a case filled with gleaming credit chips. "As agreed. Now, the data." But before Solaris could reply, a new voice cut through the air. "I'm afraid there's been a change of plans." A squad of Zorgan soldiers marched into view, weapons trained on Solaris and the Orion crew alike. At their head was a tall, scarred Zorgan in an officer's uniform. "Commander Zax," Solaris babbled. "I was just about to dash." "Spare me your lies, human," Zax spat. "Did you really think you could double-cross the Zorgan Empire? We'll be taking that data now. And as for your prospective buyer here." Gorn tensed, ready for a fight. But Jax was already in motion. "Now," he yelled. Chaos erupted as Vel and Zoe sprang from cover, opening fire on the Zorgans. Solaris Merc scattered, caught off guard. In the confusion, Riz lunged for Solaris, grappling for the data unit. The Zorgans recovered quickly, returning fire with disciplined precision. Jax, Gorn, and the others found themselves hard-pressed, driven back by the withering onslaught. Amidst the firefight, Solaris wrenched free of Riz's grip and made a desperate break for it, data in hand. Zax saw him fleeing and roared with rage, charging after the scientist and firing wildly. Jax cursed, torn between helping his crew and stopping Solaris. But then he saw Zoe, pinned down by two Zorgan soldiers. Gritting his teeth, he sprinted towards her, blasting one of the Zorgans off his feet with a well-placed shot. The battle devolved into a brutal close-quarters melee, Zorgans and Mercs alike resorting to knives and bare fists when guns ran dry. Gorn, slowed by his injury, went down under a dogpile of Zorgans but not before snapping one's neck with his bare hands. Jax, Zoe, and a bloodied Riz fought their way to each other, forming a tightening circle against the pressing Zorgans. Vel was nowhere to be seen. Just as it seemed they would be overrun, a thunderous boom shook the complex. Everyone, Zorgan, human, mercenary, paused in shocked confusion. Into that sudden stillness walked Vel, hauling a battered but alive Dr. Solaris by the scruff of his neck. In her other hand, she held the data unit and the charred remains of Commander Zax's uniform. "Caught this one trying to make off with the goods," she said, shoving Solaris to his knees. "Zax too. Let's just say he had a little accident with a plasma grenade." Jax almost laughed in sheer relief. Against all odds, they had done it. They had Solaris, they had the data. They had won. As Terran reinforcements finally arrived to secure the scene, the exhausted Orion crew collapsed against each other, grins turning to winces as the adrenaline faded. They had paid a heavy price. They were bruised, bloodied, pushed to the brink of their endurance. But they were alive, and they were together. And in this business, in this unforgiving galaxy, that counted for a lot. There would be new challenges ahead, Jax knew as he watched his crew. New dangers, new choices to be made. The Zorgans would not forget this defeat. The Terrans might not prove the most reliable of allies. And who knew what other threats lurked out in the void, drawn by the allure of the Odysseus serum. But those were worries for another day. For now, the Orion crew savored their hard-won victory. And began to plan for the future. Captain Sarah Chen watched from her command post as the last transport ship lifted off. The evacuation of Colony Delta 7 was complete. All civilian colonists were safely away from the incoming mercenary fleet. Now, only her small team of 30 human special forces operators remained on the surface. The alien mercenaries had thought they could simply sweep in and take the colony's valuable mineral deposits. They didn't expect to find Earth's finest warriors waiting for them. They certainly didn't expect what was about to happen next. "All teams, check in," Sarah said into her comm unit. One by one, her squad leaders reported ready. They had spent the last 3 days preparing the colony's industrial zone. What looked like an abandoned mining facility was now a carefully planned killing ground. The first mercenary dropships appeared in the orange sky. Sarah counted 12 of them. Each one could carry 50 troops. 600 enemies against 30 humans. The mercenaries probably thought these were good odds. They were wrong. Remember, Sarah broadcast to her teams, "We just need to hold them here for 6 hours until the fleet arrives. Make every shot count." The dropships landed in a circle around the facility. Mercenary troops in bright armor poured out, moving with the confidence of soldiers who thought they had already won. Different alien species made up their ranks: tall Krax warriors, swift Veen scouts, and heavily armed Torgut shock troops. Sarah waited until they were halfway to the buildings. "Initiate Phase 1, she ordered. The ground erupted. Hidden mining charges, repurposed as bombs, exploded in carefully planned sequences. The blasts didn't just kill, they shaped the battlefield, creating walls of rubble that forced the survivors into prepared killing zones. Through her scope, Sarah saw the mercenary officers trying to reorganize their troops. That's when she triggered Phase 2. The facility's automated mining drones, reprogrammed by her tech specialists, emerged from hidden bays. They weren't built for combat, but their industrial cutting lasers worked just as well on enemy armor as they did on rock. The mercenaries fought back, but they were in chaos. Human snipers picked off officers with precise shots. Combat engineers used the facility's ventilation systems to pump disorienting gas into areas where enemies took cover. Every time the mercenaries tried to retreat, they found their path blocked by more traps or deadly crossfire. 3 hours passed. The enemy had lost half their forces, but they kept coming. They had to. Their reputation across the galaxy would be ruined if they retreated from what seemed like such an easy target. Phase 3, Sarah commanded. This was the riskiest part. Her teams began falling back, appearing to abandon their positions. The mercenaries charged forward, thinking they had finally broken the human defense. Instead, they ran straight into the heart of the trap. The facility's massive ore processing plant roared to life. Conveyor systems moved at full speed, carrying not rocks but streams of plasma-heated metal. Industrial crushers and grinders turned from processing equipment into deadly weapons. The mercenaries found themselves fighting not just soldiers, but an entire factory that had been turned into a giant death machine. 5 hours in, Sarah received the message she had been waiting for. Fleet approaching. ETA 30 minutes. Hold position. She looked at the battlefield through her tactical display. Only about 100 mercenary troops remained. They were pinned down in small groups, unable to advance or retreat. Their dropships had been destroyed one by careful application of the facility's heavy mining lasers. "All teams, prepare for final sweep," Sarah ordered. Her soldiers moved in, their carbon fiber armor scratched and dented but still intact. They had trained for years for situations exactly like this. Every operator knew how to turn any environment into a weapon. The mercenary commander finally called for surrender just as the first human Navy ships appeared in the sky. Sarah accepted, but made sure every surviving mercenary got a good look at her small team as they were led away. Let them see, she thought. Let them tell others. This is why you don't attack human colonies. This is why mercenaries across the galaxy fear human special forces. We don't just defeat you, we turn your own confidence against you. We make you regret ever thinking we would be easy prey. As Sarah wrote her report later, she included a recommendation: classify the mining facility as a successful proof of concept. Human special forces didn't need huge guns or advanced weapons. Give them any environment, and they would turn it into a fortress. Give them any tools, and they would turn them into weapons. The mercenaries had learned this lesson the hard way. Sarah knew the story would spread. The next time raiders thought about attacking a human colony, they would remember Delta 7. They would remember how 30 humans defeated 600 of the galaxy's toughest warriors. They would remember, and they would choose an easier target.